Hi folks, Dana Bob here. Welcome back to Vembre Park. And today we're going to do a bit of a tour as to how far the park has come. Starting in the visitors arrival building with the still unfinished fine decorations, but the bones of it laid out. So let's get out there. And you will, if you've been here from the start, notice there's been a lot more landscaping done in this area. And we have a fountain in the pool in the center of the plaza. Through the trees there, you can see the lab building, and over here on the other side is our welcome house. It also has not been finished inside. So let's go to the park where there's a lot more stuff that's finished. We'll go across the bridge. And a little ramp there for wheelchair guests, and the ticket pavilion, I guess. We'll head through into this first circulation plaza, and a little water feature. The gates that go out toward the lab, special tours only. And let's use the right-hand rule and head off to Asia. The archway here is actually inspired by a monumental piece of Mongolian architecture. The first habitat that one will come to along this route is Psittacosaurus. The animals were hiding, so we jumped ahead, and to the right, I think maybe see one out there somewhere? I don't know. They were being obstreperous. Another small off the main track viewing area there, and a refreshment stand. You'll see lots of refreshment stands and market stalls for the guests. A lot of them were put in during a period when the guests were being very, very, very needy. Across the bridge takes us deeper into Asia. You can see this is, of course, Asian-inspired architecture. And there are platforms to the right to look over and get a glimpse of the Tyrannosaurus exhibit. I'm not sure I saw any out there, but and down the bridge ramp, try not to fall through it. The main viewing pavilion for the Tyrannosaurus exhibit. There's another one up on that tower in the large building, or near that tower actually. Off to the left is the Dinoceras. We have to back up to go to that. We'll scoot up here a little bit. One of the things you are going to see for sure on this tour is a lot of things floating above the ground. I'm going to have to go back in and fix a lot of that. Some of them are perennial problems. Some I just missed when I was putting it in. We do have Dinoceras and a guest who shouldn't really be there. This was filmed while a lot of the animals were escaping, and with the upcoming locomotion update, we're all hoping that the devs will have a lot of that fixed by the time that rolls around. So very sort of Great Wall of China-ish idea for the main Asia building there. We'll be going through it once we get back to the path. And it has two entrances. This is the split leading to either one of them. We're going to go up the right side. And you can see the animal silhouettes to indicate which side of the building you'll get viewing from. There are restrooms underneath near each gate. And up through the tunnel, there's a plaza to the left. And can't see all that much of it from there. More of those keep the guests happy stuff. This park is very spread out, which may have contributed to that. And a little glimpse back at the plaza there and the main Asia building. See the Dinoceras fountain. So we're going to take this right-hand path which takes us to the King of the Asia exhibit. Well, King and Queen, actually. It's a large habitat divided into two so that the male and female Tarbosaurus could have their own space except during breeding season. We're going to go out to this viewing area. You see there's stairs down to ground level one. And here, there's one now. This is, I believe, the male sitting down there. And on the left, the other viewpoint area into the exhibit. The female's habitat is mostly not available to the guests. Look back there at the Tyrannosaurus shelter building, and we'll head out now back across the bridge. This is all very fast because I've got to cram this in. I'm already going over the limit, but trying to get as much in as possible. So we're going to go cross country. At some point I'll probably put a path in here, preferably when we have another Asian animal that will fit in there. And you can see the gate again coming up ahead of us with the volcano in the distance. We're going to go through that and watch your head. And on the right, we're going to see the next area that we're heading into. Along this path, you can see an entry to North America, but we're going to be turning off to the right into Europe. So a little topiary there, and then through the castle gate. And ahead of us is the most recent exhibit that went in, but we're going to turn right and ignore the garden for the moment and cut over into the main viewing area for the Scelidosaurus, an early game kind of animal out here in Europe, and we get to see one this time. I think there are 4 of them in there. A little shelter for our guests to hang out if it's raining. You can see the entrance on the other side of the exhibit over there. And back around toward that implied little garden. It doesn't have a guest path in there right now, but it is sketched out in dirt color. Little gate. Right now will certainly keep them out of there. There's Iguanodon Hall and a little viewing area to the left. But inside the hall, where there's some information, you can look out into the habitat. That sort of metal framed thing over there is where a keeper can do an animal feeding talk. I only see one iguanodon out there. The rest of them are probably over in the other half of the exhibit, which will be on our left as we go across the bridge. The main part actually is on the right. So here we go, across the bridge. And yep. Iguanodon's on the left, and there's a pair of binoculars I need to fix. Some of it's my fault because I didn't get it right in the first place. Sometimes I swear these things shift a little bit in between saves. Maybe they do, but it certainly feels that way. So we're going to pick up the pace on the walking here because this section of the park is mostly unfinished, and it's a long walk, waiting for more animals to fill it in. And out of Europe and into North America. You notice that looks remarkably like the one you saw on the other side, and indeed it is. Stopping briefly on the bridge for a little scenic look, and on the left you can see one of the large wind turbines that are placed along the river to help distribute power through the park. Down the bridge and truck along at extra speed up this hill, and then we're going to cut to the right for now to visit this section of the park, which is Tyrannosaur territory. There's one on the right, watch out. Under the arch, and sorry about the beeps there, and around to the building. The care building for the Tyrannosaurus is ahead on the right. On the left is the shelter for the Triceratops, which is in on the left. That wasn't there when I did the video on the Hell Creek tour. And the main Tyrannosaur viewing area is on ground level, and I see one out there sitting down. Oh, fairly alertly. I wonder what that means. Nothing, I guess. I'm gonna rest down a little bit. Anyway, on the right over here is a closed off area for, special ticket items, where we have an education area that also offers views into the habitat. Oh, we got back up, and here comes the other one. The last time we went through here, the bug was keeping the Tyrannosaurus standing in place, a little bit like an exhibit animal, just stuck in one place. So give you a little bit of time to see them in their habitat moving and eating, as it turns out. So there will always be things I can tweak in this park, and probably will. But one of the reasons we're doing this tour is Vembre Park is going to go on hiatus for a little bit. More on that later, because we're going to go up to the tower viewings. There's a implied elevator to get handicapped guests up here. This is the Tyrannosaur side, and even from here you can see into the Triceratops side, and there's one in the distance. But guests who are interested in the three-horned face can come over here for a better look. You can see the roof of their shelter building poking out there. Okay, so this is the, whoops, we dropped into their shelter building. Sorry about that. And there it is. If you didn't, if you did watch the other video and felt sorry for them, they now got that covered. So yeah, I want to get some of the animals that are headed this way before I continue on in this park. I will be continuing with Lost Kingdom, and it'll be sharing its rotation with a new park. So you have that to look forward to, assuming you're looking forward to it. And this is a little viewpoint into that Triceratops habitat we already looked at. If you've been following along, you know there are two Triceratops habitats, one for T. horridus and one for T. process. They are successive species. There's one way in the distance there. Two in the distance. Anyway, the two species are successive in the Hell Creek Formation. And a recent study is suggesting that there may be an intermediary species as well. We're walking now along the river on the left, and the hadrosaur portion of Hell Creek, which is Edmontosaurus, and a duck-billed blind here is into the habitat peak, and we actually have one, two. So glassed in duck blind sort of thing for these duck bills. And it's a little confined to move the camera around sometimes, and I actually got kind of lucky on this pass through. Anyway, we got still a fair bit of territory to cover, so let's get out of this area, get back on the path, and we'll be heading down toward the Cretaceous entry plaza, which adjoins with the Jurassic portion of the North America section of the park. And that's it coming up. Ahead to the right, the path goes off to the other Triceratops habitat, and the tower. We'll take that shortly. This is a viewing pavilion for the Edmontosaurus. You can see they're out there. So we'll take a quick run up and through the walls, up onto the platform, and there they are. That little elevated area is where the water stops. It looks like there's one rolling around in it. So down the pavilion, and this is all going very fast. Apologize for that. Trying to keep it as short as possible to get through the whole park, and it is a big park. So on the left is the entrance to the implied safari ride, and ahead is the care area for this Triceratops and the Edmontosaurus, and we'll go upstairs to a walkway that will look out on both of those habitats. The upper part of the Edmontosaur, and not just the upper part, but the whole thing of the Triceratops. There's one getting up now. That's one of the boys, I think. So the tower has stairs which are very tight and hard to take the camera through, so we'll just climb up and take a look out there. This is the tallest viewpoint right now in the park, and way out there is the entrance to Europe, and way out there is the hills that are in the Tarbosaurus exhibit in the background. So quite a bit of ways, and we're going to go up in the air, and you can see the Tyrannosaur habitat centered in here. Run the cursor around it, give you an idea of the distance. And so each of the herbivores come up to an elevated section, so the Tyrannosaurs actually can't get to them. But seen from their exhibits, you can see the Tyrannosaur portion without actually seeing any fencing. So we're moving into the Jurassic portion of the park, well, of North America, and by the Jurassic Bone House, which is a combination of restaurant, mostly implied, and viewing pavilion. So you can see the restaurant in there with its Jurassic meat eaters. And up the stairs and onto the pavilion. And the other things that keeps happening is the signs keep losing track of who they're supposed to be telling you about, which is what's going on right now. Not quite sure what triggers that, but it sure does trigger a lot, it seems. I see a Tarbosaurus out there. They're male and a female in here. And they have a fairly extensive exhibit, which in its upper portion in the back, it's way off to our right and back right now. They have an elevated portion that lets them see into the main Morrison exhibit from up there. A little area where guests can move up and look at ground level into the habitat. Come through the canyon here to the main ground level viewing area with a water hole. And I see this exhibit has guests too. And floating dung beetle nest. As well as Tarbosaurus. Oh well. More things to fix. The path on the right leads down to an eventual Morrison safari ride. And come through some more of the canyon, and it empties out here. Alternate paths for the guests, and the Morrison exhibit on the right. There are Dryosaurs in there, and Camarasaurus and Brachiosaurus. Looks like we have a fair bit of activity in this section of the park right now. I probably need to come back and do some landscaping for the guests right along there. Excuse me, for the guests. The main viewing area, which has some amenities for the guests. Oh, my, excuse me, my voice is being troublesome today. So this elevated pavilion gives the guests almost head level view of the Camarasaurus. I see several of them out there wandering around. And if we look to the other side, yep, Brachiosaurs with their heads in the trees. So we're going to, yes, okay, there's one with an actual head. There are screens up here in the implied elevator for our handicapped guests, stairs for everybody else. Back down to river level, you can see another one of those big wind turbines I mentioned, and another portion of the North America section on the other side of that bridge. We'll do a quick jaunt over there in a moment. Moving along the Morrison exhibit, we come down to a habitat on our left and a viewing building, very similar to the hadrosaur one. I basically cloned them and did some tweaking to suit the terrain around them. And this habitat is for Dryosaurus. I used a different skin in here, but it gives our guests to get a closer view, a chance to get a closer view of those animals. The bridge on our left goes over to the Canada portion, and at the moment we've just got one exhibit out here. We'll fly over the bridge this time. It has a viewing platform also, and we have the woolly Pachyrhinosaurus and the little Edmontosaur. They're both from the Prince Creek Formation, so they get that viewer bonus. And the trail continues on. I think you can see the peaks of the Europe Castle entrance in the distance. So the park will connect there. We need to go back to finish our tour. So this time, instead of flying over, we'll bump our heads across the beams all the way across and head down alongside the Dryosaurus habitat. And stop to see that there really are some in there. They're not as good at escaping as the Coelophysis and Dilophosaurus, but they do. The Psittacos do as well. So some shopping for the guests on the left, and now we're turning toward the Dilophosaurus exhibit. Very deserty, as is appropriate for the animal. Another blacked out information sign. So I don't see them. Oh, another one with guests. At least the Coelophysis won't starve in there. More blacked out screens. We come back around and you can see that the guests can see through this wall into that habitat, and there's their care building. It is a spread out park. When you got big animals like sauropods, that's kind of forced upon you. So we'll go through the North American entrance into this little plaza, and you see the path on the left. We'll come back to that. On the right is South America. Right now, just one animal in the park, and it is Argentinosaurus, Cretaceous period dinosaur. I see a floating wind turbine, sigh, and a floating light. Yeah, a lot of that running around. So there's a little size comparison chart for our guests, including a scale measure to let them see how big these things are. So we're going to have to go up there to the viewing area for Argentinosaurus and the Pseudo-Inca pyramid. There's a viewing area right here. We got two of them there looking at us. Well, not looking at us, but for us to look at. And across the way, there is seating for feeding shows. You can see the balcony on the care building over there on the right. And so there would be basically feeding shows for Argentinosaurus here. Big beast. Just, you know, I mentioned how big that space is. Those mountains in the back are Hell Creek, the boundary of Hell Creek. So we're going to zoom back down to the ground onto that path I mentioned and head up to the Triassic portion of the park, which is where the coelophysis are supposed to be, but I think they're all currently on walkabout in the park. I decided to put 3 of them in here, one for each of the skins, and on the idea that Pangea was huge and there probably would have been a certain amount of regional variation at the very least for these animals. So 3 separate habitats, all slightly varying in their vegetation. There's a little keeper building in the back there, non-functional right now, just notional. We go down the path back to the main passage through the park, and you can see the rock formations there. We're going to spin around, take a peek at that, identifying it as the Triassic period, and then also sort of fast map of the continents contemporary with that time period. Coming up on the right is Gestimenides area. This is a more formal one. The Oasis Nom Nom with 3 shops here on this plaza area and outdoor seating as well. Sorry for the hitch as the game saves, but I don't have a lot of control about that. There's a shop on the left and restrooms even further, and ahead was right now is an information area. Small refreshments, and we're coming up to where we started in the park, which is that little water feature by the ticket pavilion. So we're pretty much back where we started in the park, and it's time to give you an idea of the aerial look. So that's a lot of terrain to cover. The sauropods, when I put them in, certainly demanded it, and I generally like to give the animals, Hell Creek out there in the distance, and the tarbosaurs out there. So a lot of ground to cover. You have seen it all now. Thanks for stopping by. Like, subscribe, comment, please. Take care and be kind to each other. Dino Bob saying bye now.